Alrighty, hey, what's up, Dom? Let me get this set up a little bit here. Move this back this way. This way. And then turn that off and turn no, and that and that. Never ends, folks. Never ends. The fun never ends. All right. I'm doing okay. Just trying to get back. Just trying to get back to work. So all my stuff was packed. So like I had to like undig all my. I had to dig all my paper out and some of my pens. It's just. It's like anything else, you know. It's just like all right. So I was doing digital version of this, but it's just going to be easier to ink the thing traditionally than the other way around. There's a lot of reasons for it, but sometimes it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put something here. Do. So, oh shuckers. Hey, what's up, Oza? So, just gonna have to pick somewhere to start, right? And this over there, put this here. My cylinder drawing the new craft. Drawing in here is not a problem because I have a lot of space. The problem is just getting all my stuff together, you know, like so I just don't have everything unpacked and placed where it needs to be and part of that is because I just don't have the extra 2 weeks to sit here and do all that it would need, you know. So I have to kind of like get it done a la carte, right? It's actually easier to do this now than before, simply because my Cintiq is now completely out the way. I used to have to shove it back, and that'd be kind of cramped over here trying to like have room to do all this shit. But now that I have that arm, it just moves completely out the way. It's like way over here. So it's super nice. Yeah, man. I don't envy you, dude. Truly, I don't. I mean, it's all got to get done, but it's just a colossal fucking pain in the ass. I mean, at least we got ours done before the shitty weather started, but, you know. Yeah, definitely no fun. Just get this straight edge shit out the way now. Hey, what's up, Niven? Yo, what's up, Jose? Thanks, Tom. Did I put some transparent paper on top of my sketch? Transparent paper. No, I just turned the opacity down, printed it out, and then I'm just finishing the drawing. So you get like the rough details down, then you can just draw the rest on the paper. They were in talks. They're not in talks now, but whatever. Whatever gets us a Silver Surfer in a Thor movie, right? And Galactus, and whatever gets us there, I don't care. Plus, we'll get the 20th Century Fox logo back before Star Wars, right? And at the end of the day, man, it's still their characters. You could say, well, look at when Fox has them. Well, it's still technically Disney shit. Are they going to get them back sooner or later? Eventually they will. Hey, what's up, Zix? No. No, I like both. Believe me, you can't do the Game Informer cover the way I'm doing this unless I had like 4 sheets of 11 by 17. So I just had I done this all digi inks, it would have been fine. But I tried a new brush and it just was a wrong project to to be doing this on. So I don't have a preference. It's just finding out which one's right for which project. They each have their strengths and their minuses. At comfort level. No, it's just I just know what I need to do with this one. So and last night I was like, was trying to make something happen and it wasn't happening. So I did not enjoy the fact that something that is relatively easy. This is not a hard cover to draw. This should be pretty fucking simple. But for some reason, it just wasn't working out the other way, and I know why. It's just I should have stuck to my old digi inking technique. You know, I think that pencil brush has some strengths and it has some weaknesses. It's going to take a few more side projects to kind of like get it working. and they really need this stuff like soon. So it's more like their needs versus what, you know, it's the time. It's the time crunch, you know. And having to start over is never fun, you know, but it's what had to be done. So, oh well. This character benefits from having more grit anyhow, so it's kind of like the way it works. My day was fucking weird. So I got up and did some cleaning and went to go dig out this paper from because it was packed up, and then I ended up locking myself out of my house while I had coffee boiling on the stove. So that was fun. I had to turn off all the power to the house while I sat in my garage in 25-degree weather until my wife came home. So that was fun. Luckily, the cold doesn't bother me, but it did cut into my productivity for the day. My wife's it's never happened, so she was just confused, you know. I'm like, yeah, here's a new experience. So, what did I do in the garage all day? There wasn't anything I could do. I just kept moving around, kind of everything's organized. So I just picked boxes up, moved them from one edge to the other, then pick boxes up and put them back just to keep warm, you know. It was real fun. Funny part was the one thing I couldn't keep warm was my toes, and they started to get red from the cold. So to keep, you know, to keep anything from happening, we had some old, they're not old, but we had some sealed up pads when we used to potty train the dog when she was first born. So I had to wrap those around my feet to keep warm. You know, I don't have any weights in the garage, but I'll get that down. Believe me. So that was fun. Some wife's like, "You're wearing pee pads." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you know." You do what you gotta do. She's like, you always just manage to get into so much trouble, and all I do is, you know, I don't go anywhere. Like I just sit here, you know. So it was a few hours, whatever. Builds character, right? Just goes to show you're just one dumb mistake away from murdering yourself. Oh, dog's inside. All our animals are inside animals. So dog was confused too. Like, why is he not coming in? But I didn't want the water to boil over, get in any trouble. So you never know, you know. Inadvertently start a fire. So I had to shut the power down to the house. But it wasn't a big deal. Just boring. Kind of a waste of time. Oh, I know, right? I mean, like, if it was a major emergency, I would have just went to a neighbor's house until someone let me use their phone and call my wife. But, you know, I figured good way to teach myself a lesson, you know? Don't fucking lock yourself out the house. Did any inspiration hit me? Not really. Uh, About 3 hours. Would have been a walk to the all my neighbors work during the day, so would have been a pretty decent walk. So I was like, well, better to just teach myself a lesson. But not make my wife. I don't want to leave work early this week because she has to go on a trip later this week. How much am I selling this for? I don't really. I don't know. I haven't sold any of my cover arts in a while. I usually have a minimum of 300 to 400 for cover art in terms of reselling the pencils, But oh, how many can I do in a week? I don't know. Depends on the covers. It's not a lavish lifestyle, guys. All right. I can make a lot more money working at Walmart if you really want to know. So, you know, it's just how do you want to live your life? You know? I made a lot more money in t-shirts, believe me. But who gives a shit, right? You're all here because of my t-shirt work? Nope. I'm not starving, man. I do lots of little commissions. And I do my little print drives. And, you know, so when you look at it, within a year, each cover can make me an extra grand or so, maybe 2 grand when everything's said and done. Just the cover work alone between resale on art, prints, plus commissions that it brings in. And if you're looking at, doing an average of 1 to 2 a month, and then taking the rest of the time to do my own comic, then hey, it all kind of works out. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. I try not to think about it, honestly. Some years you have really great years, other years you don't, you know. It's just the way it goes, man. I've been doing this for a long time, dude. You know, it's just funny when people bring it up because it's like I way past considering all that. You know. As long as the bills are taken care of, I don't give a shit. Nice. Yeah, totally. Bada boom. Do I have any old art around? I did uh, a cast about a year ago when I first moved over here when I was packing Rob's old art. If you want to see my old stuff, that'd be the place to do it. To check it out. Rob's old art. Oh yeah. Now's not the time for me to dig around. I gotta get this done. So where is the? There we go. Do 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 do. Oh, yeah. Do I ever go back? No. No, I don't go back to t-shirts. I'm done with that. I don't want to live in art departments anymore, man. You know? I mean, definitely not in art departments where I'm not just drawing or something, like where I'm just sitting there pretending to be six different artists all day and then living there during crunch times and stuff. It's just not how I want to spend my life anymore. I think a lot of artists spend so much time saying, "I want to do it full time," and you don't realize what that means. It's like, okay, you're doing it full time, but are you just making a bunch of bullshit? You know, like, and are you cool with that? Like, for the longest time, I was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Long as things are being. That was how I was making a living. I learned a lot, but t-shirts don't teach me anything anymore. There's nothing I can learn from them. Like, I've done everything there is. And after the last few rounds of drama I had dealing with Marvel and all that other stuff, I just don't feel like going through it anymore. They're not worth it to me. It's just not worth the trouble. Watching everyone around you get paid and me not getting paid, really. Getting no vacation, no benefits, no 401k, no health, no anything. For what? So there can be yet another Captain America shield shirt at Target? Like, to what end? Spending dozens and dozens of hours, sometimes just in a day, like staying at work for 12, 14 hours for like 2 weeks straight or a month straight, just so sales reps can walk into a meeting with 300 designs and they're only going to sell like three, but they want to have 300 on every body, and then never getting paid vacation, you know, ever. You know, getting yelled at when you're like, oh, you know, you're working too late, you know, or when I need equipment and they don't want to pay, you know, like I've always had to buy my own Cintiq and bring it into work. And one of the last places I worked at, you know, I had two Cintiqs, the one here and the one I take to work. And the one I took to at home burned out. And I was like, hey, you know, I'm gonna have to take the Cintiq from. I went to buy me another Cintiq. You know, I'd been there for a couple years, and I'm like, you know, can you guys buy me this equipment because I use it every day? You know, I mean, I'm making you money. And they're like, you know, you don't really need a Cintiq. You know, so the answer is no. And it's just, I don't see the point of working for those kinds of employers. You know, I don't. You know, I can, if I really had to, you know what I mean? I could go get a job at a hotel and just work the desk 3 nights a week. And I mean, if I really have to, you know, it's like fine. You know, there's other ways to earn a living, and I don't care if they're glamorous or not glamorous. You know, long as when I come home, I can do whatever I want to do art wise, and then put it out. And you know, like short of some tremendously weird opportunity that comes along, you know, artistically, I just don't see myself putting in the crunch time slash. I mean, there's just not enough money in it. I mean, for what? Like 30, 40,000 a year to do what? You know, to have all these kids come in too, the new artists, and tell you, oh, you know, fucking use Photoshop, I use Illustrator, then find out none of their shit ever sells. None of it ever sells, guys. You know, like these new kids, like they grow up on the internet thinking because there's a Pinterest board that has 3 million fucking views attached behind it that equals sales, and it just doesn't. You know, and it's like you try to teach them like, hey, you know, here's the techniques you can do. Oh, your shit's old, man. I'm like, great, but your shit just doesn't sell. Just like this Urban Outfitters fucking super trend. You know, like Ollie Moss is a great designer. The Ollie Moss shirts, you know what I mean? Like sell once and that's it. You know, but when they're like, oh, we'll put the Ollie Moss stuff on every fucking thing, it's like that doesn't actually translate the way you would think it would. You know, it just doesn't. I spent 10 plus 15 years. I mean, between that and the magazines and, you know, it's like I just like drawing cartoons and shit, man. That's all I like doing. Like drawing cartoons and stuff. You know, it's kind of a simple life, you know. It's not glamorous. It's not, oh, you know, I'm working on the next expansion for the World of Warcraft series. Like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not working on anything important. Not working on anything that's going to probably be remembered, you know, except this YouTube channel. Like, that's about it, you know. How did I? When I heard Rob talk about it, artists would be happy using Illustrator. How did I put up with it? You just you keep. Well, I gave everything the benefit of the doubt for the longest time. Like it was going to lead to somewhere. It was going to lead to something. You know what I mean? Like, and it led to nothing. It got my art got worse. You know, you become a worse artist. These artists and these what happens is they just end up all looking the same. You know, and they end up producing the lowest common denominator. And you know, man, really well drawn stuff doesn't work on t-shirts. Kind of needs to be a little fucked up, you know? Like, and that can wear on artists. Like, I can't do this and put it on a t-shirt. It's never going to work, bro, you know? Even if you drew your own Spider-Man, Marvel would never approve it. They used to, like, maybe around 2005, 2006, but now they definitely won't. Like, you gotta fucking just do whatever they put in a style guide. And it's just, you know, okay, you're not really an artist at that point. You're like, you know, and then you're like, well, I guess I'm a graphic designer, but not really because when you look at graphic design jobs these days, they tend to involve HTML5 coding, you know what I mean? Some form of programming or JavaScript. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of that shit. Like, like I don't care. You know, like I get it. You know, I totally get. I know what this industry is. I know what it entails. You know, I know what parts of it I enjoy being a part of and what parts of it I don't. You know, and I don't give a flying freak, dude. You know, if people think. I've had people on Deviant and even okay, let's say colleagues of mine say that I'm wasting my fucking talent, not like working for Marvel. I'm like, well, first off, Marvel doesn't want me. They only hit at people they want. Two, they don't sell this at Marvel. My man, what's a style guide? Shit, how do I say that? So when you buy into a license, let's say you want to make Marvel t-shirts, you pay for the license to have t-shirts at a certain level of retail. Backpacks, whatever, okay? They make a style guide, which means used to be on CDs, but now you download them. And there's these little packages of pre-made art, that they hand you. And what most art departments do now is they just take that art and drag it onto a fucking shirt or drag it onto a backpack. I like to call them drag and droppers, Or problem is, it used to be you'd get elements and then you'd have to rearrange those elements and find more creative ways to do them. But it's just gotten less and less and less and less creative with those style guides. And then what happens now is when you do creative shit, every time you make a design, it has to get approved. And so what they do is they don't approve the creative shit you do, but then they take that idea and the next style guide they make their version of your idea they didn't approve, that they would approve. Problem is now all your fucking competitors have your ideas. So it sort of invites never being creative, which in turns pushes down fucking sales. It's this weird defeating cycle of bullshit. It's that you ever wonder why when you go to the store shit doesn't look interesting? That's why. You know? That's why, and it's just like whatever. Whatever. And I honestly got so good at doing it, I could build up this tolerance where I could go into work, knock out a bunch of stuff, and in my head it was more like this puzzle solving game, right? It was like puzzle solving. And then I'd come home and work on and that was actually working, you know? Except then fucking, there's this whole thing with Marvel, dude, and I don't want to get into it. I've made plenty of podcasts about it, but they basically follow me around. They keep me from being employed at this point. I just, it just gets old. Cycle decay. Yeah, it's just how it is, And this is why when people go, "How come the poster art sucks for movies?" And I'm like, licensing departments. That's why. Licensing departments has to get approved by some asshole who thinks they're fucking art director. Thinks they're fucking super fucking smart because they got Photoshop. And I can't tell you how many fucking times with major retailers, these guys come across and you're supposed to be designing art because it's your company, and these fucking retailers go, "Here's what we were thinking you should do." Like, what? And they just go to Pinterest, they go to DeviantArt, mostly Pinterest these days, and they just fucking gank people shit and knock it off and like make that. And I'm like, first off, we're gonna get sued eventually. Two, that shit doesn't translate to retail. Maybe Image Comics would be my safe haven. There's no money in comic sales, man. So dude, unless you do everything yourself. Even Spawn only sells 15,000 copies a fucking month, bro. There's no easy answers for any of his icks. There are none. You just gotta put your foot down and say, what do you want to do? There's no trick. There's no missing corner of the internet I have missed. And if I just did this one thing, it would all work out. I've done it all, dude. I've worked for major publishers. I've had recognition of my work. The only way through it is to figure out what pain you want to put up with. And my pain right now is just figuring out how to make this all work. That's it, There is no safe haven, It's just, it takes effort. It takes effort and time and pressure. And then, you know, maybe someday there'll be some weird payday out of it, but who knows? I'm not counting on it. Be honest, folks, I came from such humble fucking beginnings. I shouldn't even be able to do this. I mean, the fact that I can even own a computer was not something I fathomed when I was like 18, you know? Like, I didn't know how the fuck I was going to be able to draw anything, you know, let alone own anything. So, I don't complain, you know? It's like my life, you know, this is all far more than I ever thought I'd be able to accomplish. So, the hardest part I always had was just not being visible. I would work on projects and everyone else would get credit for my work but me. You know, so at least here you all can see what I do, you know, highly visible. Sure they did, but that's, you know, take a number, man. You know, there are worse things in life than that, you know. But they never got my talent, you know, like they never took that shit away. And you know how many fucking great artists I've met in t-shirts that just fade away into like no talent. Because they just go, well, you know, I'm just gonna fucking do this thing and go home and that's it. And then after fucking 10 years of it, they're, you know, it's really horrible. Type in t-shirts in the DeviantArt and look at some of those portfolios. They all look the same. It's always some badly photoshopped, airbrushed chick next to tequila bottles and, you know, rendered skulls and just boring shit, man. They don't need to steal original ideas. They don't care. They don't need to steal designs or ideas. They don't have to, you know. They can it just goes on and on, you know. People don't want to buy something new. They want to buy something that they've already heard of or that you have, you know, like it's just it's tough, you know. It's like people it's kind of like think about this, you know. One of the big arguments for movie trailers is that they give away too much and it ruins the movies and people don't want to see it because you know the trailer spoiled everything. Meanwhile, the highest grossing movie worldwide this year is fucking Beauty and the Beast, a movie which everyone knew the beginning, the middle, and the end too, you know. It's just like there's a perception and then there's, you know, what people perceive to be true and then there's sort of, you know, the way it kind of actually works. Believe me, I've put my foot down. I've walked out of art departments and left over it. You know what it accomplished? Nothing. Accomplished nothing. I fought the fight. I've quit. I've done everything one can do. You know, and you live long enough, you just start going, fuck it. Not my problem. This is just not my fight anymore. You know. Someone else deal with it. Just want to make fucking cool shit, you know? Put it out there. Maybe inspire a few people. Spend the time making things and less time about trying to like change the world, you know? Yeah, they buy the same Call of Duty every fucking year, bro. You know, and they will. It's just I put my money where my mouth is. I don't spend money on things I don't believe in. I don't buy Call of Duty. I don't buy Activision games. I don't buy EA games. You know, I play the kind of games I love. I buy the kind of art I love. You know, I watch the kind of movies I love. I spend a lot of my money on independent artists. Most of my music purchases are off SoundCloud, Bandcamp. Bandcamp, sorry, Bandcamp. That's where I spend most of my, you know, like, you know, Kickstarters and stuff. So it's just, no, indie games had a resurgence and they might scale back down. Never, it's just these things come and go. You know, the tide, you know, recedes. The tide extends. Everything about having. I'm not a good teacher. I don't know if art. I'm not the dude. I've tried to pass on as much as I can to Brent. This is what I'm here doing. I'm actually passing this all on to you guys right now. The fact that I'm showing this isn't here so I can fucking be told, "Oh, Rob, you're fucking awesome." This is really so everyone can see exactly how I made stuff. I'm not saying it's how you should, but it's definitely how I did. You know, that's why there's all these streams. And to be as honest as I can about things, like this was a good experience. That was not so good experience. You know, if I could invest, you know, in spending less time on this sort of thing and more time on that, like, you know, in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna teach someone to be a little Rob. Nope, no desire. You know, I don't even think it's possible. You know, at the end of the day, I was a person who just always wanted to make fucking art, and I had no fucking shot at doing that. My art was so fucking bad when I mean, really, really not good, you know, and it's just through sheer perseverance and sticking with it and constantly analyzing. I was always told that I thought too much. And art departments would go, well, you know, Rob, you just think too much about this stuff. But, you know, my stuff got better and theirs didn't. So, there you go. There's something to be said about not overanalyzing something, but if you never fucking study what it is, worked and didn't work, how are you actually supposed to improve? And then you have to apply it and hope you don't forget about it when the fucking time comes. That's the hard part. Like, you know, and then finding out what's that magic formula between working hard enough and being, you know, mindful of how much time you're spending on something. It's tough. There's so many variables. No project is the same in that respect, you know. Yeah, well, I've always taken pride in the fact that I can do a lot of what those people are doing, but how many of them can pull off the shit I've pulled off, like by themselves, you know? Not a lot. So, but I don't spend a lot of time looking at a lot of stuff, man, that I'm not interested in, you know? Just you can't be creative if you're just spending all your time looking at fucking shit that's like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like this. Okay, then don't spend time on it. It's like this whole drawing with pens thing, man, is not something that could ever do when I was a kid. Like this came out post 2009, 2008 when like well actually I didn't even start doing this really till 2012. But the germs of this came from the fact that I was getting carpal tunnel doing super clean pencils. You know, I'm pressing too hard all the fucking time, which led me to doing digital work with the Cintiq, and that fixed my carpal tunnel. But then, you know, I never had traditional things to sell, and that's not good. So, you know, and then finding out, like to this day, I'm still constantly like, what's the best process for this project? You know, it's a constant battle, man. No one's teaching me. I have to sit here and like go, well, I think this, you know, uh, I think this, you know, what's my support clean pen? I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, it just means I was just doing everything with pencils. I don't have anything around me, man. But if you look at like the mosaic pages on my Deviant, go back, you'll see. I don't do it anymore. For the exact reason that I said. It wasn't healthy. Selling my designs to tattoo artists. I don't draw skulls coming out of wings and that's just t-shirt art, you know? Basically the same thing. I don't enjoy it. I had a profound thing happen to me, Six, and I've talked about this before, but um, I watched my father die, and over a period of days and, a couple years ago, and I just basically at that point decided I wasn't gonna spend the last minutes of my life in an ICU unit when I'm in my 60s wishing I had drawn the things I wanted to draw, you know? Wasn't going to do it. Then my mom passed away 1 year to the day after that. It was really weird. They had their funerals at the exact same place. So a year later, I'm sitting in the exact same room with like pretty much the exact same people burying my other parent. They're just like, you know, I'm like, I'm just not gonna do it. Yeah, it wasn't fun. But I don't forget either. I don't forget. I'm not gonna be like, well, that's how I felt then. Life changed. It's like, no, man, it doesn't change. So the plan is wrap up power prints. While I'm doing that, try to get some exposure doing stuff. I've done that with Transformer stuff, the Game Informer, and then, once the power prints are done, then it's mostly just going to be Game Cave and commissions. Like that's it. So it annoys some of the people who back those Kickstarters. Are like, how come things are taking so long? I'm like, just fucking chill. It'll all be done soon enough. Like I went and did all these designs for these prints like over a year ago, and I had no idea how I was gonna fucking get them colored or execute half of it. And now I have the skill sets to do it. So it's just you got to figure out what you want, man, for real. You know, it's the hardest part. What do you want? And then methodically start fucking tearing at it. Piece by piece. How do I stay so positive? I had a really, how do I say this? My childhood wasn't, how do I say this? Everyone's got something tough, right? Mine was emotionally fucking difficult. I was constantly told, I developed very good barriers at a very young age, you know, on how to deal with this stuff. Put it that way, you know. And I've been like responsible for myself for a long time. So it was like, all right, well, I definitely know what it's like to have everyone tell you suck, you're never gonna make it. And I'm like, okay, great, I'm never gonna make it. Perfect. Then I can get on with not making it, you know? I developed that mean sense of humor that just allows you to kind of power through. Likewise, I watched my mother and people around her not do too well with their lives. So I saw what happens, when you make poor decisions through drinking or substance abuse or anything else. And I guess I was just really fortunate that I paid attention. I think at the end of the day, you know, Sam Harris would say that I must have the genes for it, but I don't know. Maybe my brain was wired that way. No, man, it's just, you gotta, like, if I wasn't able to do this, I would just sit down and start with perspective and construction and line quality. I'd spend years just doing it. I'd, it's exactly how I did it. First I tried just creating comic book art, right? I'll start drawing a picture of the Hulk. You get to a point where you can't move any further with that. How do I make my own designs? How do I Oh, I need to know these basics. And you got these basics, but then how do I arrange those basics in a way that produces the result I want? Hold on. You know, well, then I need to know what figures look like and how to move figures within a volume. And I'm trying to figure out a way to describe this through like small little bits, so I can kind of walk people through the mental stages of it. And then there's just a reality of what you can and can't do. You know, I can't become. I guess if I really wanted to paint like Alex Ross, I could spend a lot of time just doing that. You know, but what are you? What do you? Once you have a firm understanding of everything, what do you gravitate? What is the thing that actually keeps coming across all your work? What do you keep producing? What does your mind click? I never thought I'd be able to color my work well. Certainly not digitally. That wasn't my plan. My goal wasn't to be a colorist. But I needed my work to look good, and I couldn't afford to pay people to do it anymore. So then you go, well, how do you become a good colorist? Well, what about color do I what are the different stages of color? Beyond color harmony and color theory, do I understand value? Do I understand basic light sources? Not complex ones, just lighting things from underneath, lighting things from above. And if I understand three-dimensional surfaces, then I can light those things, with some form of topography on the figure. Oh, I do. Yeah. Caffeine chills me out. I don't really get, how do I say it? Like, I could drink an espresso and go right to sleep. You know. How did I learn to color? You just start with flats. You do small. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't. You're asking me a long question. Well, piece by piece, right? Small bits. It's just, it depends on what it is. If you see these landscape paintings, was me trying to figure out how to work out basic landscape sketches, you know, like how to carve out silhouettes, make the silhouettes kind of adhere to a lighting scheme, a time of day, always a time of day, and then working what kind of color scheme you want within that. I mean, there's so many different ways, dude. There's no one way. Using color pencil is not the same as using. I've done a little bit of everything, and then you try to find like what parts work, what don't, you know. But if you're gonna use color to tell a story, then it's all about the time of day and the emotion. Matter of fact, I'll say this about art: all art is emotion. It's about eliciting an emotional response. Doesn't matter how you draw, realistic, cartoony. It's about eliciting an emotional response. And did you get the emotional response you were looking for? And if you didn't, what can you do? I can't answer that for everybody, but what you're going to have to answer for yourself. But what can you do to get the emotional response you're going for? The technique is largely irrelevant because the technique I use may not be the one that speaks to you. There is no one way to do it. There are lots of ways, and there are definitely fundamentals that can help you, you know, get to the end result that you're hoping to achieve. But that fundamental will not produce by itself the result you're trying to achieve. And if none of that made any sense, then you're not at the phase. It will, all these things make sense at a certain point. Like, you do get to a point with a certain set of skill or talent or whatever you want to call it, or experience, where those conversations make complete sense, you know. No, there was no tutorial. Wish I could point you to one thing. Wish I could say, this tutorial taught me about how to color my... No. You know. What time is it? 4 o'clock. Just like no tutorial taught me how to ink like this, you know? It kind of starts with what you're trying to achieve, and then does it feel right? And then failing 700 fucking times. Uh-huh. Well, go look at go look at the Overwatch cartoons and the Warcraft animatics and tell me how giant swords don't fucking sell, you know? Like, sure they don't, you know? I don't give a fuck what anyone says when it comes to like what will and won't sell. With t-shirts, the one thing I've learned, dude, is we've done one of everything, you know? And I've seen something not sell here and then the very next day sell over there. And the things that never did, there's always something for somebody, man. Just, you know. And plus I won't make my art based on what I think will sell. Like, that's so fucking dumb. This will sell, that'll sell. It's like, well, you know, whatever. The bigger question is if, you know, your task was to design a different, you know, can you design a giant sword? Can you design a, do you need reference? Can you create from, you know, thin air? Do you have that ability? Don't you? I always find that the people that tend to fucking go, well, that wouldn't exist. I think that a lot of those people are just intimidated by the fact that they don't know how to do that. You know, they wouldn't even know how to start, and so they're trying to get me to conform to what they're capable of doing. I just don't give a shit. You know, there's nothing realistic about a man who wears his underwear on the outside of his fucking pants and flies around, saves the day, but people spend billions of dollars every fucking year watching those movies, you know, or laser swords, you know. Did that giant sword create the emotional response you were looking for? Answer A, answer B. You know, if A is yes and B is no. If answer B no, how do you adjust it? If it did, then mission accomplished. Move on to the next fucking problem. That's it. That's the key, you know. Just find your audience. Nothing realistic about Attack on Titan, but it's fucking cool as shit. Like, you know, you're getting the emotional response that dude triggered. Absolute terror plus absolute exhilaration. You know, like eating really seriously tasty spicy food. You know, it's the emotional response, man. Always with that. You know, financial reward, man. It's a crapshoot. It's how you keep your art feeling alive, even when it's just fucking lines on paper, right? Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. Well, there's not a lot of variation though, man. You'll find that eventually I'll just tell you the same thing. I think there does come a point where like, well, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Yeah. That being said, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm gonna get to sleep and then get up and wrap this up later on. So upside is this is already on the page. It's working. We can just draw all these giant controllers and everything else and be done with it. Be done with it. So it's getting there. So I'll be back on later today and wrap this up. Get it scanned in and colored. Move on with life. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. Zix, Dom, Infernal Hell, Dink. Who else we got in the house? Niven, Ozan, and all the other bots. Peace, everybody.